Walk into any watch store in 2026, and you'll see something that makes no sense. Luxury watches selling for tens of thousands of dollars that will be worth half that the moment you walk out the door. There's one category of watches that's about to become the worst investment in the entire industry, and if you're thinking about buying one, you need to hear this first. The watch market is collapsing in slow motion. Not all of it, just specific segments that got propped up by hype, speculation, and people treating timepieces like stocks. We're watching a bubble deflate in real time, and most buyers have no idea they're catching a falling knife. Let me show you exactly what's happening and which watches you should absolutely avoid in 2026. The problem started around 2017 when watches stopped being just watches. They became investment assets. People weren't buying Rolexes to wear them, they were buying them to flip them. Authorized dealers had waiting lists stretching years into the future. Gray market prices exploded to double, sometimes triple retail. A stainless steel Daytona that retailed for $13,000 was selling for $40,000 on the secondary market. This wasn't sustainable. It never is. By late 2022, cracks started forming. Prices on the gray market began softening. Those waiting lists got shorter. Dealers who'd been acting like gatekeepers suddenly had inventory sitting in their cases. The people who bought at peak prices, thinking they'd found a guaranteed investment, watched their watches lose 20, 30, sometimes 50% of their value overnight. You'd think that would be enough of a warning. It wasn't, because there's one segment of the market that hasn't corrected yet, one category still riding high on artificial hype, and it's about to come crashing down harder than anything else. I'm talking about modern luxury sports watches from heritage brands, specifically the ones everyone tells you are safe bets. Here's what makes this fascinating. The watches I'm warning you about aren't from sketchy micro brands or fashion labels. These are prestigious names, 100-year-old companies, the kind of watches your financial advisor might tell you hold their value. And that's exactly why this is so dangerous. Let's break down the mathematics of why these watches are terrible purchases right now. Take something like an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in steel. Retail price sits around $30,000. Sounds reasonable for AP, right? Except just 3 years ago, you could walk into an authorized dealer and buy one without a wait. Today, they'll tell you there's a list. They'll make you buy other watches first. Build a relationship, prove you're a serious collector. What changed? Not the watch. The marketing did. AP realized they could create artificial scarcity. They cut production, made it harder to buy, and suddenly everyone wanted one because everyone else wanted one. Classic manufactured demand. The gray market price shot up to $60,000, $70,000. People convinced themselves they were getting a deal when they finally got the call from their dealer at retail. But here's what they're missing. That $30,000 watch costs AP somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 to manufacture. Industry insiders will tell you the margins on luxury watches are insane, typically 5 to 10 times production cost. So AP is already making massive profit at retail. Every dollar above that on the gray market, that's pure speculation, completely disconnected from the actual value of the object. Now multiply this across the entire industry. Patek Philippe Nautilus model selling for $300,000 when they retailed for $50,000. Rolex Submariners at $20,000 that you could buy for $8,000 a few years back. Richard Mille pieces at $1 million that cost maybe $100,000 to produce. The whole system is built on one assumption. There will always be someone willing to pay more than you did. That assumption is breaking down. I started noticing this shift about 8 months ago. A friend who deals in high-end watches told me something that stuck with me. He said the calls stopped coming. For years, his phone rang constantly with people wanting to buy Pateks, APs, rare Rolexes. They'd pay whatever the market demanded because they assumed prices only went up. Then suddenly, silence. The buyers vanished. At first, he thought it was temporary. Holiday slowdown, maybe. People being cautious. But months passed and the inventory just sat there. Watches that would have sold in hours were now sitting for weeks. He started dropping prices. 10%, then 15%, then 20%. Still nothing. This wasn't unique to him. Dealers across the industry reported the same pattern. The speculative buyers, the flippers, the investment crowd, they all disappeared at once. And without them propping up demand, the real market value became visible. Turns out, not that many people actually want to wear a $60,000 Royal Oak. They just wanted to own an asset they thought would appreciate. Here's where it gets worse for anyone holding these watches. The brands themselves are responding by increasing production. They saw the gray market prices and realized they were leaving money on the table. So they're making more watches, which is exactly what you don't want if you bought based on scarcity. Rolex announced expanded production facilities. Patek is making more Nautilus models. A P increased Royal Oak output. Every move designed to capture more of that inflated market price, but each one dilutes the exclusivity that justified the premium in the first place. So we've got falling demand meeting rising supply. Economics 101 tells you exactly what happens next. But there's another factor most people aren't considering, something that's going to accelerate this crash faster than anyone expects. The generational shift. Millennials and Gen Z, the people who should be entering their prime luxury watch buying years, they're not interested, not the way previous generations were. And it's not because they can't afford it. The wealth transfer is happening. Young tech founders, crypto winners, early employees at unicorn startups, they have money, but they're not buying watches. I see this in my own circle. Friends who've made serious money in the last 5 years. They'll drop $50,000 on a car, no problem. $100,000 on art, $200,000 on experiences, travel, exclusive memberships. But suggest they buy a Rolex, they look at you like you suggested buying a fax machine. To them, it's old people jewelry, a status symbol from their parents' era that means absolutely nothing in their world. Their phone tells time. Their Apple Watch tracks their health, answers messages, monitors their workouts. The idea of strapping on a mechanical device that only tells time, that requires winding, that needs service every 5 years at a cost of $2,000, it's incomprehensible. They genuinely don't understand the appeal. And you can't build a luxury market without new buyers entering at the bottom. The traditional path was young professional buys their first Rolex Submariner at 30, feels successful. 10 years later, they upgrade to a Daytona. Another decade, maybe they buy a Patek. That's how collectors were built. That pipeline is broken. The 30-year-olds aren't buying that first Submariner anymore, which means there won't be 40-year-olds upgrading to Daytonas. No 50-year-olds reaching for Pateks. The whole pyramid collapses from the bottom up. What we're watching is a speculative bubble deflating in real time. And the scary part? Most people holding these watches have no idea it's happening. They check gray market prices occasionally, see their Royal Oak is still listed at $50,000, and think they're fine. But listing prices mean nothing. Show me actual sales. Show me what people are really paying. Those numbers tell a very different story. Dealers are getting desperate. I've seen offers you wouldn't believe. 20% off asking price, and they'll still negotiate lower. Throw in free shipping, free insurance, extended payment plans, anything to move inventory, because they know what's coming. They can see the market deteriorating day by day. Every week they hold on to these watches. They're worth less, so they're trying to get out while they still can. The people who'll get hurt worst are the ones who bought at peak prices thinking they were making an investment. The guy who paid $70,000 for a Royal Oak in 2022 when he could have bought it for $30,000 in 2019. He's already underwater, and it's going to get much worse. That watch will be back to retail prices, maybe even below, within the next year, possibly sooner. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. These watches were never actually worth what people were paying. A Rolex Submariner is a well-made tool watch. It's worth maybe $8,000 to $10,000 based on materials, craftsmanship, and brand value. Everything above that was pure speculation and artificial scarcity. When you paid $20,000, you weren't paying for the watch. You were paying for the story you told yourself about exclusivity and investment. This reminds me of another market that collapsed recently. Remember NFTs? Digital images selling for hundreds of thousands. Bored apes going for $500,000. Everyone convinced they were getting in on the future of art and collectibles. The people who bought early made money. But anyone who bought near the top, they're holding worthless JPEGs now, watching the floor price crater while telling themselves it'll come back. it won't. Luxury watches are having their NFT moment. The difference is watches have actual utility. You can wear them. They're physical objects with real craftsmanship, so they won't go to zero like NFTs did, but they'll return to something closer to their actual value. And for anyone who paid gray market prices, that's going to hurt. Now, I'm not saying mechanical watches will disappear. There will always be collectors who appreciate the craft, the history, the engineering. People who buy watches because they love watches, not because they think they're investments. Those buyers will be fine. They'll actually benefit from this correction, because prices will become reasonable again. But if you bought a luxury watch in the last 3 years, thinking it was a smart financial move, you need to understand what's happening. The market is correcting, values are falling, and they're going to keep falling until they reach a level that reflects actual demand from people who want to wear the watches, not flip them. So what should you do if you're sitting on a watch you bought as an investment? Honestly, if you're already down significantly, holding might be your best option. Selling now locks in your loss, but don't expect it to recover to peak prices. That's not happening. The bubble has popped. This is the new reality. If you actually love the watch, wear it and enjoy it. Stop checking prices. It's a watch, not a stock portfolio. But if you bought it purely as an investment vehicle and you're still close to even, get out now. Seriously, take whatever you can get and move on, because 6 months from now, you'll wish you had. The luxury watch market is learning the same lesson every speculative bubble eventually learns. Fundamentals matter. Actual demand matters. You can manufacture scarcity and hype for a while, but eventually reality catches up. We're watching that happen right now, and it's going to reshape the entire industry in ways most people haven't even begun to understand.